In episode number 388 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the Batman reveal for Matt Reeves' Batman film.
We also have an amazing return, something that I never thought we would see, but Batman the Animated Series is coming back to comics.
Our comic book highlight this week, as voted by you, is Joker Killer Smile number 3 of 3.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am Aqua Leader Daniel.
You got a promotion.
I did.
Got at that
this week.
In 1 week. And I am your Emperor Palpa Kelli. No promotion needed because I'm already at the top.
Already the Palpa.
Already the Palpa.
For any new brokettes to the show, the way we format it is first we go through some news. We head into our Patreon shoutouts of the week, which are our thank yous to everyone who make the show possible. We go into our comic book highlight, which was voted by you on Twitter. And finally, we end it with a brokette block, which is listener questions and where Palpa Kelli and I have been.
But our first bit of news is a reaction to the Broscars and the lesser-known Oscars. And there was a movie that many felt was snubbed and left out of any possible winnings or nominations. And that is, of course, Avengers Endgame.
Endgame actually ended up winning that, or setting that record, right? We talked about last week of making that much money, along with Jaws and E.T., which all took home an Academy Award. But Endgame took home 0, the only movie to do that in that profit bracket. Well, the more appropriate awards show, I think, right? This is what the MCU sheep were waiting for.
Yes.
And this is what they really, this is the one they should pay attention to.
Of course. Because, obviously it's the right one, right?
For them, yeah. The Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards has nominated Avengers Endgame for 11 awards.
Let's not forget the Oscars, aka the Adult Award Show, nominated Joker for 11, but okay.
The Nickelodeon, for any MCU sheep out there, the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards is airing on March 22nd on, of course, Nickelodeon. So there you go. You have that.
I used to watch the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards when I was a kid. And I was always like, yeah. And then they did a thing where the kids could vote for the president, quote unquote.
Yes.
And they would post. And I always wondered how many adults, now that I think about it, how many adults called in. Because you just called in and you hit a button. That was all you had to do, because I voted at one point. And at the time, the kids' choice for president had always been who actually won. And I was like, yeah, Mom, because we know. I was some badass. And then when it came to Obama, it was the first time it was wrong. And I was like, oh, this is incorrect. I'm discrediting this now.
God, so you don't think it was ever, they just chose ahead of time? Let's just make it so that they agree with the winner.
No, I don't think so, because they announced it long before the winner was actually announced. They're just like, oh, yeah, the kids are saying, it's going to be this person. And it was correct for so long. And then, but it was probably because they heard their parents talking, and their parents were like, yeah, or in the case of Obama, it was just adult Republicans calling it.
I guess so, yeah.
to vote and validate some things.
Did they ever have school votes for presidents at your school?
Not at my school. My school was so small and also very Republican.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember in mine for junior high school, they would have a little ballot and every classroom would vote in and they would announce who the winners are. Looking back on it, I was thinking what's the purpose of it? But I guess it gets you used to actually going out there and voting, and we would have mock debates on why this president should win or why that one.
That's awesome.
And we would be assigned a certain president. So it would be a cool way to kind of have you defend a side that you may or may not agree with. And we did the same in English class when there was multiple endings to certain literature. And I think one of them was The Turn of the Screw. And that one, it could be a ghost story, or it could be the story of a mom killing her child.
Oh.
Depends on how you kind of interpret the book. And there was these two sides of you had to debate that she should not go to jail, that it really was a ghost, or you debate that there was no ghost and she lost her mind. So you would read the book and find like the pieces of evidence where you could say it was the mom choking the child, or you could say it was this. And I know I'm going down a rabbit trail, but all of this, I guess, was helpful and all of that. And and I guess that
you do like to debate a lot now. Yes.
The Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards coming up, Endgame, how many will it take? Will it take all 11?
Oh, I'm sure. All of them.
How many MCU sheep are going to tout that as like, you know what? Fuck it. Yes, good on them. This is what it should have been.
I hope they put it on the cover of the movie. Legitimately.
Along with the fucking Rotten Tomato. Those fucking Rotten Tomatoes websites and all that fucking bullshit. This is what they wanted with Birds of Prey. Their fresh tomato rating, and they finally got it. What an discredited fucking website.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I don't... Rotten what? Rotten who?
We also have some Netflix news with something that is bound to make Kelli. We've got tons of news that's great for Kelli. They're in talks to renew DC's Lucifer for a 6th season. This is according to Deadline.
They're still working on the 5th season right now. I follow them on Twitter, and they're always like, they give us hints so that we can guess the titles of the episodes and try to figure things out, and the titles don't lead to anything, right? But they're really active on Twitter and letting fans know, hey, we're still working on this. So it's so encouraging to see that, yeah, there could possibly be another season, because they essentially told us this one is it, and then they expanded it so they could tell a little bit more of the story. But now I might get another one, and there's still so much story to tell.
Did you expect them to go all the way to a 6th season at this point?
No.
Wasn't the current one supposed to be the final one?
Yeah, that was supposed to be it. And that's, again, why they expanded it a little bit, because they said, you know, we can go a little bit slower with these stories and really hone in on what we're trying to say and the story that we're trying to tell. I really thought when it got canceled the first time, like, I held out hope, but I thought that was it, right? It wasn't going to continue after that. Of course, Netflix picked it up. The last season was great. There was the cliffhanger at the end. I'm like, ugh, my heart, I'm still reeling, and it's been months. And then, of course, diligently following, waiting for them to come out with the next season. And I legitimately, they said, like, okay, guys, this is it. And I think fans were so happy that we at least got that, right? We got the creators knew that it was wrapping up, that this was it. They could tell the story that they really wanted to, and we were okay with it. But now they're teasing me. They're dangling this thing in front of me, and I'm like, but I need that too.
A little history on Lucifer. It started out on Fox for 3 seasons before it moved over to Netflix for 2 so far, which is now apparently going to be possibly 3.
Maybe. There's still so much, and the shows, they wrapped the last season a while ago, right? So it's been many months since that was really in the forefront of minds because it was out. And every time anybody posts a GIF or anything of Lucifer, there's tons of comments on my Facebook, just like, this is such a great show, I can't wait for it to come back. Lucifer with little heart eyes, right? Like, women love this show so much, and they still love it. So that's so encouraging that Netflix is seeing that too, and they're like, okay, maybe we can squeeze a little bit more out of this.
This is still, once again, that 1 Million's Mom protest group.
They're still watching
watching and making diligent notes on what's wrong with this show and how it's unchristian.
This is not what the Bible says, but let me rewind just to make sure.
And give it more views and keep it going. I remember that was years ago where I think it wasn't Panera.
Olive Garden.
Olive Garden was doing that promotion with Lucifer. So they were going out to boycott this and not watch the show. Ended up getting it even more publicity. And look at it now, up to almost 6 seasons on Lucifer.
Amazing.
Is there any hope at all, do you think, that we'll get if season 6 happens? Will Constantine show up as he did in that CW crossover?
Don't even give me that hope. Like, right now, a 6th season would be great. I'm happy with the 5th season that's coming out, right? But now you're throwing more at me. I get this. It's too much. I can't hope that much.
As well as the characters, do you think they could work together as a whole show?
Yeah. Hell yeah. You see what I did there? Yes, 100%. I even think that, so the way that the last season ended, sorry if the spoilers for anyone, not really, is Lucifer's back in hell, right? So it's like, oh my God, how is he going to get out of there? Who's going to convince him? It'd be a perfect time for Constantine to even show up there and just be like, hey, you got it, like, let's go, right? Because he has the ability to do that, whereas other characters don't, right? So it would be a perfect opportunity. Not that I think that's really going to happen, because a lot of this was written and done prior to the crossover with him and Constantine. But that blew my mind. Like, those were both shows that I had so much love for and were so great. It would even be a good opportunity, right, if they continued Constantine and Lucifer.
Yeah.
Because that show ended on such a cliffhanger too, when it got to such a great part of, oh my God, like there's dissension amongst the ranks, or whatever you want to call it, right? Backstabbing would have been a great opportunity for that too. So I don't know. I would love it. I think they would be great. I think they're both crazy enough that they would get along really, really well, even though I guess technically Lucifer is kind of everything that Constantine's against, sort of.
Sure.
In some ways, right? So yeah, stop. I can't. We got to end the show. This is just too much. I got to go tweet some people.
Here's something else that we got this week. I know we were promised, like, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to get that Batman suit reveal for Matt Reeves' The Batman film. And the director posted his first look camera test of Robert Pattinson's Batman suit. It was all covered in red glow and red light, close-ups of the bat symbol, of the cowl, and a little bit of the cape. We didn't get a look at the ears, but what were your thoughts on Pattinson?
I mean, he was fine. I felt like it was enough to get people excited, but wasn't really enough for me to look at it and say, oh yeah, so that's that. This is what they went with, right? There was a lot of shadow. Wasn't super clear. Like you said, it was all in that red light. So everything just kind of, for me, everything just kind of mushed together. So I think it was just a very brief look to get us excited and start to speculate. And I'm sure there's people who've stopped it and changed the lighting and slowed it down
Yes.
and looked at all these different pieces. And I didn't go that deep into it. So I'm fine to wait until we see a little bit more in a different setting. I still have faith in Pattinson being Batman, and I trust that, you know, they're going to create the suit that works for the world that they're building, and that's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to go into a little more detail about what was noticed in the suit. And yeah, like you said, people have already turned it into black and white. They've even done it where they color in his face so that we can see it in like true, quote unquote, true color.
Who has time? Who has this time for these things?
People who are looking for clout. And they've been upping the contrast and really getting into the details of the suit. And one of the things that was immediately brought up, and it went up online, and I'm not sure that I agree with this, but they said that the bat symbol looks as though it was crafted out of a gun. And they're speculating that maybe it's Joe Chill's gun, and he's using that as a symbol against, you know, Gotham, and he's taking... I get the whole idea behind it and how they romanticize the idea of taking something that created you and destroyed your life and turning it around into something that strikes fear into enemies, right? But to me, it doesn't look like the handle of a gun. I'm not a gun owner, but I've seen from other people online, they're like actual gun owners, and they're like, no, that doesn't look like any part of a pistol or anything like that. But that's what people immediately gravitated towards. I first thought that could have almost been like what he models the Batarang after, if that's what he ends up doing. And I know in the comics, Kevin Smith recently did a story in Detective 1000 of Batman burning and melting down that gun and making it into a chest plate covering his heart. And it was like a very symbolic moment, and it was beautiful, and it worked in the comics, right? It was like a little one-off story. And in this, I still don't see that as being the case. I don't know how they would make it work. It would have to be like a really different type of looking gun to kind of fashion it into that symbol. And if it is, then great. But until we actually know, not a huge deal. The cowl section where it connects with the shoulders. Actually, did you have any thoughts on the gun portion? Did that scream like gun handle at all to you?
No, but I wasn't, I mean, again, I was like, okay, like turn on the light. Let me see it. So no, that wasn't what I gravitated towards it. I mean, it would be interesting to spin that. But again, I think if they do go that direction, Batman wouldn't ever really make it look like a gun. And he wouldn't be like, Alfred, when we melt this, still make it look like a gun, but also my Batarang. Like that's not what he's going to do. So it's great that it would be symbolic in that way. But at the end of the day, that the bat on his chest is really a distraction, a protection. You know, he thinks about it from, I can't think of the word, but like the usefulness of it, right? He's not thinking, oh, let me be super symbolic. The practicality, exactly. That's what he's going for with anything in his suit, right? Rather than let me send a message that people may or may not pick up with my maybe bat gun.
I think it was in Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns that he has it where the big bat is a target for them.
Right.
That way they never fire at any different part of his body.
Wasn't there a comic too where it like lights up or something like that? So that's what they aim for?
Yeah, I think that was in Batman Inc., or at least in those years of Batman where that portion lit up as well. So there's been different types of explanations for it, and all valid, right? Each person has their idea of what Batman is. We just don't have that confirmation in this instance, like even where it blatantly looks like a gun, where you can say, okay, yeah, because no one's found that gun that exists that would look like those little components in that symbol, at least that I've seen. If you've seen them, Brokettes, let us know. And the other thing I was talking about is where the cowl meets the shoulders. There's like a little rise to it, almost like a little, I don't know what you call that little bit where like a little collar type of thing. And a lot of people are saying that's so that he has movement in his head. They've solved that problem of, which they've done before. They did it with Christian Bale's Batman, of being able to move his head while still having it not look weird when the cowl is bending. So instead you hide it with the collar there. So that's how they were saying it worked. And the helmet itself, or the cowl where you see the seams of the eyes and the mouth and everything, there's actual very blatant stitching marks. So it actually goes way back to almost a Batman 66 Adam West look to it in that portion of it. And I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if this is an early version of the suit, not even in the Batman universe or in this universe they're building, but if it was just an early version for the camera test. Because I know Joaquin Phoenix's Joker looked a little bit different when we had that first reveal as to what we got in the final film, but it wasn't that much different. So they're pointing out that this doesn't look like a metal helmet or something that would really protect his head. Instead, it's more like a theatrical thing. And of course, we didn't get a look at the ears themselves. I'm personally hoping for the longer ears that we got in his first appearance, and that would be appropriate to what they're going for in this early years of Batman film. But I've seen Photoshops of both the short and the long ears, and it looks fine either way. It's just a matter of how stylistic do they want to get with the rest of the costume.
We'll wait and see. Again, I have, faith that they're going to give us the costume that we want. And there's, no matter what they give us, there's going to be somebody who's going to complain and say, well, this is stupid. And there's going to be people who look too much into it, and we'll have more to talk about. And I'll say, it's just a suit.
Here's something. Do you want the purple gloves in this?
I don't really care.
I'll take the fucking purple gloves.
Oh my God. I wasn't ever attached to the purple gloves. I was like, that's kind of odd, Batman, but whatever you want.
The Batman is set to release on June 25th of next year. A little over a year away, and we'll have a review right here on the show.
Speaking of Batman, it's time to spill the tea.
So much tea.
I'm going to be that lady from Mulan. Now pour the tea.
Yeah, this was a pretty big story that was first scooped by an unnamed source via Film Gob. Great YouTube channel. I suggest you check them out and subscribe to Film Gob. But this is a different story to the New York Times article over Ben Affleck leaving the Batman solo film. And apparently there are further details that have emerged from this source that Film Gob is protecting for obvious reasons.
So according to the source, when Jeff Johns was brought on by Warner Brothers to help Ben with his script, Affleck told him to fuck off.
This is, and that's a quote right there. All of this that we're going to go with, that we're kind of highlighting as well from Film Gob's video, is all from that unnamed source. So none of this is confirmed, but this source, when he saw that article by the New York Times in which Ben not blamed, but he attributed him leaving the project to his alcoholism, had to come forward and say that's not why Ben left. And if people don't know this story, they need to. So I need to tell someone that is going to get that story out to everyone. And that's when they went to Film Gob. So from all here on forward, this is all from that unnamed source. So take that as you will, but just know that they felt compelled enough to less than a day later say, no, that's not right. This is actually what happened. And towards the end of it, they say, I don't know further details after this event, but this is what I do know. And that was that first one that Ben immediately did not get along with our buddy Jeff Johns, as we've said in the past. But with all these things coming out, it's like, holy shit, what's going on? I may need to call Jeff myself and really clear the air and find out what happened.
So Affleck told him to fuck off. Then WB chairman Toby Emmerich was brought on to mediate the situation. Toby supposedly liked the script, but said, if it gets the same reaction as BVS, you could go into a spiral.
And that's a quote. Quote, if it gets, end quote, into a spiral. Ben wanted to move forward, regardless, as writer, director, and star of the film, but Toby suggested taking the directing from Ben to, quote, take the pressure off, end quote.
Toby said, quote, we're just looking out for you. We don't want another Heath situation, end quote.
What do you think of that portion of them, Toby using Heath Ledger's death in trying to convince Ben to get off the project? Or even, I think this speaks more of Toby's insecurity on this project by bringing on Jeff, saying, hey, you need to come on and help them change some of these things. Ben, you need to step down. And we're using Heath's death, whether or not he meant to use it in a truthful way,
right,
or if he was just using that to try to get his own way, him and Jeff's. I'm not too sure, but I think that bringing that up is, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's in poor taste. It's difficult because all of this is hearsay, right? It's, hey, and then Toby said this, right? And you don't really know for sure what he said. Because it could have been, oh, we don't want another Heath situation, in which case he's an asshole. Or it could have been, hey, what happened with Heath was tragic, and I know that he was going through a lot, and we didn't step in when we could have. We're just trying to do that with you, right? Two very different conversations that could be shortened into that sentence either way. You know, you always want to believe the best in people, but it sounds like Toby's kind of an asshole by what this person says. So I'm not entirely sure. It's a difficult place to be because, you know, I really hope that they cared about Ben and what he was going through. And, you know, I understand that was probably a big toll on him mentally, especially as we get further into what was going on with his personal life.
Mm-hmm. Ben was still confident in his script, though, even after Toby suggested that he step down as director but remain as writer, producer, and star. But Ben wanted all three positions still. He was confident in the script. But this clashed with Geoff Johns' plans for the future of the DCEU, which included a more quote-unquote optimistic line of films.
To further fight for his project, Ben released the Deathstroke test footage on August 29, 2016, citing reactions from fans as a positive sign.
In a 2017 interview, he said that he would not make the movie unless he was satisfied with the script. The source says this was his way of telling Jeff to back off, otherwise he'd walk away.
Shortly after, Toby had a sit down with Ben and told him he would not be directing the movie. This is very similar to how Toby made Zack leave the Justice League post-production.
So they're saying that when Zack's daughter committed suicide, that Toby had a very similar talk with him and said, hey, why don't you we'll take the rest of this. We'll finish the post-production for you. You need to take a break. And when he left, they decided to change his entire film completely.
Right. To
bring on Geoff Johns, rewrite all this stuff, bring on Joey Whedon, and just completely change his vision, which I think was very disrespectful. I don't think there's a good way to look at that.
There's not.
There's no good intention there. You're using a tragedy to try to, quote unquote, right the ship in the future of these movies, and they got paid in kind, right? Look at what happened with Justice League, and look at where we are many years later as we're learning more and more things about the situation through Zack, through people that worked on the movie, through the actors, and now from people that apparently were in some way close to what happened between Ben and Warner Brothers.
While all this is going on, Toby had Jeff talk to other directors like Darren Aronofsky and Matthew Vaughn for the project, both of which quickly turned it down. When Matt Reeves was approached, he suggested that Jeff, quote, get his house in order first, end quote.
Yeah, Matt had a couple of ideas, but didn't want to jump right into the project. Shortly after, Geoff Johns supposedly leaked information to blogs so that they would spin the story as Ben being fired from directing instead of the compromise. And this was all in the hopes that this would frustrate Ben enough to either trigger a relapse or have him entirely leave the project.
Of course, during all this, Ben and Jennifer Garner were going through their divorce, so that's even more on Ben.
It was then that Justice League, as we're calling it now, underperformed, and Geoff Johns was fired. Damage was already done, though, right?
Right.
President of DC Film Production Walter Hamada stepped in and offered Ben the option to still do the film, Unfortunately, Ben had then summarized that this was all detrimental to his physical and mental health and was not convinced that Matt Reeves wanted to do the project with him as originally intended.
Of course, like you said at the very beginning, all of this contradicts the New York Times article where Ben mainly put it on himself and said, oh, it's because of my alcoholism.
Right. And a lot of people were saying that all of this pressure from Warner Brothers and Jeff Johns and Matt Reeves, in Matt Reeves probably not really wanting to work with Ben. He had his own vision, and obviously he has a very different vision than what Ben Affleck had in his script with Deathstroke, with the current state of Batman, as opposed to like a year one story that Matt Reeves looks to be filming. So it does look odd that Matt Reeves would still be on board with this completely different vision.
Right.
People are suspecting that Jeff Johns from the beginning and Warner Brothers told him that they would instead be doing a different thing with Batman if Ben Affleck ended up stepping away, which is what they were apparently trying to make him do, or at least Jeff was, according to these leaks. And that's why Matt Reeves is okay with was very quick and okay with moving on from the project into his vision without Ben Affleck, with a whole different story and script and actor.
It's really unfortunate because, and again, we're going back into a lot of this as hearsay, right? I think there's some version of the truth within this of things that happened. It genuinely sounds like Toby recognizes and cares for the mental well-being of the people who work for him and potentially just doesn't know how to handle it. And his response is, oh, well, you can't handle this, so you're off of it, rather than saying, what can I do to support you throughout this?
And my thing is, if that was his intention of what can I do to support this, then he wouldn't have done what they did to Zach when they changed that project. So I don't think his intentions were ever in the right place, or his mind was ever in the right place. And it sounds like he was doing the exact same thing that they did to Zach, and instead tried to do it to Ben. And they succeeded, right? They succeeded, but in a bad way, where they ruined instead this whole universe in front of them. They thought that they would change the movie, have this whole different optimistic future of the DC Extended Universe, have Jeff Johns be the head of everything, and then all would be right. But instead, they got a completely opposite reaction from viewers, from fans, and now you have something like Birds of Prey that isn't performing anywhere near the level that we got with Zack Snyder during his era in the DC Extended Universe.
Of course not, because it's very difficult to take it into that lighter tone, because when you do, there's less for people to connect on. There's less for people, a lot of times, right? There's less for people to think about and go home and really feel and digest and take away from that. And they just really didn't give us any of that in Birds of Prey. While it was a fun movie, there's nothing like the Joker where I go home and I'm just like, I just need to adopt right now. And like, here's all the problems in life, right? Which obviously was extremely successful, as we've seen, or things with Batman v Superman or Man of Steel. Those are movies that you watch frequently, and you have to really like a movie. You have to really have a lot you can take away from that for you to watch a movie frequently.
I'm pretty fascinated at the beginning of this story where Ben and Jeff Johns immediately had a disagreement over the script. And I think it's a matter of I hate to say that, but creative differences, right? Where Ben had the script that he was very confident in. We had Deathstroke already lined up in this as probably the main villain of the film, whatever it was going to be. And we'd probably see a couple more references here or there. Maybe even the Joker making an appearance, Jared Leto's. And unfortunately, we haven't gotten more of that since Suicide Squad. But Jeff Johns was probably brought on to change the script, something that he had already been very happy with, something that he was, I believe, writing with Chris Terrio. I'm not too sure, but that's something he's worked with him in the past, so that's what I'm assuming. And when Jeff was brought on, he was going to change the script way more than he was comfortable with. And in him saying, if I'm not happy with the script, and that's him also saying Jeff and his changes, then I'm very quickly walking away. And unfortunately, Jeff wasn't, I guess, fired sooner to where they could have been on. And even when Walter Hamada said, hey, you can still move forward with your movie now that, we fired Jeff, but we still believe in what you want to do. And by then, Justice League had happened. He was going up and down in his weight. There was the alcoholism, relapse, a divorce, and it was kind of a mess, right? Where it just unfortunately wasn't salvageable, I think, for Ben, in which, you know what? I'd rather not do this. And I know a lot of people are saying, bring back Zach, bring back Ben. But as I've said in the past, as amazing as that would be, I would not blame them at all,
Right.
especially after what happened, for them to go, I don't think so. I think I'm just going to do my own thing. I know this doesn't work for me and what you guys have as far as your lack of trust on our vision or on our project.
And that's so unfortunate. And it feels like from this story that we're getting that a lot of the issues between Jeff and Ben were pride things, right? It's, oh, well, my vision's better than your vision, essentially, rather than saying, what can we find that works? Because we need to give the best of what we can for our fans. And so, yeah, I mean, egos get in the way and this kind of stuff happens. And it's unfortunate that they did this to Ben, to where, I mean, even to Zach, where this environment became something that they don't want to be in because, and you see it all over the place on much smaller scales, right? In much smaller locations, but the reason people lose employees isn't the money. Sometimes it's the money, but usually it's not the money. It's how you treat your people. It's how you make them feel. And this is just a prime example of you guys are being assholes. So yeah, you're not going to get these great visionaries back who had this story that we were following, this world that we were invested in. And now they're essentially starting over and you have to rebuild all of that. And I don't know that they'll get back to that point.
Does this at all change how you feel about whether or not you're going to run out to watch the Batman next year?
Nah, I'm still going to watch it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, if this comes to light like as a truthful thing, and so far a lot of these pieces do fit, I do view Matt Reeves very differently now. And if this is truly where they went and what his intentions were in all of this, and I think we'll learn more as the years go on, then that does make me a little more... Like I was telling someone earlier, I'm not dying to see the next DC Comics movie anymore. You know, it's like, all right, I'm still a DC fan and I love this stuff, but it's not like back when BVS was coming out or when Man of Steel or Suicide Squad. You
know, you bring up Matt Reeves, but I kind of view him in the same way that I view James Wan, in that he wasn't pushing. I don't feel like he was pushing Ben out. I feel like somebody else was, and somebody went to him and said, hey, you have this opportunity potentially. And he said, you need to supposedly said, you need to go figure your stuff out before you talk to me. But who in their right mind wouldn't say, oh, I have the potential to do a Batman. Let me start thinking about it.
That's true.
And then they came back to him. And even if, and I know Ben said he didn't feel like he wanted to work with him and changed it. But I think if they had said, hey, it's going to be you and Ben, he would have worked with Ben. He would have come up with something and they would have worked on it together. But in the same sense of James Wan, right, where he changed Snyder's original vision, if they come back and say, okay, now it can be yours, who's not going to run with that? What artist is not going to say, cool, this wasn't my idea, it's cool and I would have supported it, but let me go and do my own thing now. So I don't think any of the fault is on Matt Reeves, because he wasn't actively, that we know of, right? Wasn't actively trying to push Ben out. I think he genuinely would have been supportive had he been put in that position.
And if these leaks from this source do end up being true, as we find, again, as we know more over the years, I hope that Ben blaming all of this solely on him and his alcoholism isn't something that even he truly believes.
Right.
You know, I hope that's not something that he's convinced himself of. Obviously, that's a factor in all of this, but how many more issues were there around, you know, his addiction? You know, all of this stuff is going to aggravate every part of your life, not just any potential addictions you may have.
That was some piping hot tea.
It was.
Piping hot. You brought honor to the family with that tea.
Yeah, I'm glad Film God put that out. It was a really good video. And again, I suggest you check out his YouTube channel. But the fight does not stop, right? We could have easily gotten very discouraged. And someone who did not get discouraged is Zack Snyder. On February 14th, 2/14, huge day, he released, as a celebration of 214 minutes of Zack Snyder's cut, released a flash image in color of him saving what looks to be saving some people on the street. But it's an interesting image because there's two flashes in this. And they asked him later on, how is he traveling through this? And Zack responded with something along the line of, he's traveling through the fabric of time. So since then, they've kind of sort of figured out that, and Zack Snyder's cut of the film, since there are two Flashes at the end when he's going back and saving Superman and Cyborg, that he's also correcting other things that happened throughout the movie in which he wasn't maybe able to save certain people. And now he is as he goes back. And that's why there's two Flashes in that shot that Zack released, which is pretty amazing because that tells us that there are some things that don't go quite as planned throughout it. And then when we get to the end, everything kind of falls into place, including, saving Superman and really saving the Justice League.
But in addition to that, he did have a Subway endorsement. Someone asked something along the lines of, if there was a Snyder Cut sandwich, what would be in it?
Yeah, and he went out and he asked fans, and people got, pretty poetic about it, like the lettuce means this, and there was all kinds of answers to it. But Zack Snyder finally...
Are you going to look at the moon and like where Snyder's sitting right now? And
Zack tweeted out, quote, "Obviously it's all meat. No cheese, no bologna," end quote.
He's throwing some tea, too. Some shade getting thrown around here.
Over at Joey Whedon and Jeff Johns and Warner Brothers. And yeah, I mean, they put in all those jokes in the movie and the stuff that is not in his cut of the film.
We still hold out hope. I genuinely believe we're going to see the Snyder Cut sometime this year. Maybe on HBO Max or whatever we're calling it, Super HBO.
Yeah, they're saying that obviously a lot of the fan base got a little bit discouraged because it had been a while since Zack had posted up an image, and we knew that something was going to happen on 2/14. That's the big day. Some were saying maybe we'll get the cut on that day, and I think there would have been more marketing leading up to it if we were. But there's a lot happening here. Some are pointing out that every image of the Snyder Cut up to this point, except for the last two that he's released, have been in black and white, but now they're in color.
Right.
So they're thinking that that's him saying we're getting close to finishing it or to releasing it. And with HBO Max releasing in May, we're now looking forward to the launch of that as like, all right, let's push till that point and see what happens. And then from there, we'll keep working and go to the next thing. But even with Subway saying, "Never lose hope," WB quoting Zack Snyder's cut of the film when they were doing the HBO Max Instagram account last week.
Right.
That's a pretty huge thing. And I don't know if it was a mistake or if it was intentional, but that's a pretty big intentional thing.
When it comes to things like this, it's very difficult for it to be a mistake because in order to get that quote, you're having to go back and look at something that's not easily accessible at this point. So I really don't think some intern was like, "Oh, let me find the script. Okay, let me just quote this random line." Like they're not going to put people on this project on this marketing who aren't passionate about it. And obviously so many people are passionate about it.
Also, the AT&T official Instagram account quoted or commented under that Justice League image that HBO Max had put out, and they said, quote, "Things change quickly, mount up," end quote. So that was like a huge thing for a lot of people, right? Because they were reading into that as like, all right, this is us finally getting Zack Snyder's vision.
I know that people are really discouraged about it because he was posting so often, right? And now it's so few and far between. But I would almost see that as a good thing. So if we were never going to get this, yeah, why not share all the concepts, right? But now that it's getting closer and things are more finished, and I'm sure there's licenses and agreements and things that he's no longer allowed to share as it gets finalized and things start to come together to get to this point. So I genuinely think, it looks like the most plausible is they're going to have it on HBO Max. But what a pull for people to sign up for HBO Max. If you release their exclusively, right, Snyder Cut on HBO Max, you can have so many people sign up. They're going to have to take down that week trial and just have people, pay that money to get it, to see it first, to see it early. We gonna crash that site.
Yeah, the movement has prepped already to subscribe to that if that's what it's on.
Yeah.
And to buy multiple copies on Blu-ray. Like, we're all like, if they give us this, we need to say
Support
thank you.
Of
not
course.
only with tweets, but with fucking money. And we're ready and willing to do that. We're telling them to sell us something multiple times, and we're willing to do it. It's just a matter of waiting.
Don't be like the Sonic movie. Don't make him change stuff and then, I wasn't going to see it anyway.
Oh, they already changed it. That was the Joey Whedon cut, so. Here we have some comic book news, though, moving forward. Dark Horse Comics, to go along with their original screenplay of Alien that we got in the previous catalog last month, they're publishing a 5-comic miniseries of the original Hunters screenplay that would later become the Predator film.
This is set to release on June 10th of this year. I think that's a brilliant idea. keep doing these things, right? If people are fans of the original movies, they're going to say, okay, cool, let me invest a little bit. Let me see what it should have been. And then it's not just reading it. You're actually, seeing the art that goes along with it. You're seeing different actions. Almost like, obviously not watching the movie, right? But almost as if.
Yeah, and they even describe, I'm assuming in the screenplay, they describe the creature or the alien, the hunter. And in the cover of this original comic that they're doing, of the original screenplay, the predator creature looks very different than what we got. And even when they were filming the first movie, the creature himself looked incredibly different, and they had to go in and change the costume and reshoot some things, and it ended up being an iconic design, right, now that we see it. But it'll be cool to see what even that previous version was in this comic book. So that's something that I'm also going to subscribe to go along with the Alien original screenplay.
We also got word that writer Jeff Lemire and artist Andrea Sorrentino will be following up Joker Killer Smile with a one-shot from Batman's perspective titled Batman, the Smile Killer.
The title makes a lot more sense now that we've read this final issue, and we'll go into that in the review. But this one-shot is set to release on May 13th. I think that'll be a fascinating take on this particular universe.
Right.
And whether or not this is going to be a fallout from that third issue, or if this is simply how he goes about stopping the Joker in this particular one-shot.
I think that it should, I don't know, right? I'm not a comic writer, but I feel that it should take place at the same timeline about what's going on in this comic, right? Because Batman knows so much more than we think he knows. So you may think you're in your own little world, mister, but you're not, because Batman knows what's going on. He's going to show up and he's going to stop you. He climbing in your windows. He's snatching you.
What would you do if he was the Doctor the whole time?
But he's not.
Yeah, I know. But what would you do? I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be like, fucking Batman. This was just a way for him to stop Joker in the end. Did you give the date yet?
I did not. May 13th.
You can subscribe to this in the next previews catalog at your local comic book shop. We also have more news here, as an interview with Newsarama, writer/artist Stepan Sajic had teased a Poison Ivy miniseries set in the universe of Harleen. He had previously released the cover to what would be his Isley comic, is what he had titled it back then when he was on DeviantArt. But now it looks like it's finally coming to fruition.
He said, quote, "My plan is to produce Isley before the second Harleen story arc. My reasoning is twofold. First, I have a very cool story to tell about Harleen's version of Poison Ivy, a truly epic tale that will be both a visual and a narrative joy. If Harleen was more of a psychological thriller, this one will be more of a blockbuster with a lot of heart," end quote.
I love this quote because not only does he confirm this Isley miniseries, but he says there's going to be more Harleen after this. And I'm like, fucking yes, because you could have ended it at where it did, right, in that previous run. But if we're going to get more of her kind of dealing with the Joker, her insanity, I can't. That was a great story that he told the first time, so give us more of that. And if it ends up being a flop, it is what it is. That first story in itself is so solid to stand on its own, and I think it's, once again, another example of a trade or a hardcover that you can sell from now until the end of time.
I have loved what they've done in recent years with Harley and Ivy too, and their relationship and what they've grown, and there's just so much more that I want to see from these two characters. So absolutely, I'm on board. Bring it on.
Over to some Twitter news.
I'm so happy.
This is all you. I hope you enjoy your continuous wins that you're getting out of this. As long as Tom King is on board, he is doing a miniseries called Batman Catwoman. That's kind of how he is continuing that last couple of issues that he had planned for Batman up to number 100. But he teased Catwoman's pregnancy in an image by Mikel Janin and Jordi Belair.
Before we talk about how happy I am, in the 50s, Selena and Bruce married and had a daughter named Helena Wayne, who went on to become the Huntress. This was in Earth 2, which was later, I don't even know what that word is.
Retconned.
I don't know what that means.
Basically erased or changed.
Call
or
of
like
Duty shit.
Yeah, it does. Or like it never happened type of thing. Just like a rewriting the canon.
I knew it happened in my heart, so it's fine.
And every now and again, you get that version of Huntress showing up in the comic books.
So you tagged me in the tweet for this picture, and I didn't even know she was pregnant. I was just like, look at them in love. I'm so happy. And then I read the notes, and I was like, oh, shit. I'm I'm so happy. This is magnificent. Why is she still wearing that suit when she's pregnant? What's wrong with her? She needs to be in some comfy sweats, sitting in Wayne Manor, letting Alfred bring her some food.
Kelli, let her wear what she wants.
I mean,
she's
she can
a woman.
wear,
she can wear what she wants.
She can, but I also feel like this is written by a man who says, yes, 9-month pregnant Catwoman is still squeezing into that spandex and running around on rooftops. No, she's not. She's throwing up at home. She's craving pizza. She's sitting on the Wayne Manor couch.
She is pretty far along, isn't she?
Yeah, that's like 9 months.
Look, this is a promo image. How else do you do a promo image of Catwoman is pregnant? You have her in her regular clothing with Batman standing there? That's not marketable.
No, 100%. She would be sitting on the Wayne Manor couch, all sorts of snacks around her. Bruce Wayne would just be chilling there. She'd be asking Alfred for something. Brilliant. They need a woman. Tweet Tom King right now. Tell him I'll help him write this nonsense.
I honestly did not expect her to be pregnant. I thought this story was going to be they get married, they're going to be together for a while, and then eventually they'll end up breaking up, and that'll be it.
They might still break up. Baby doesn't mean they stay together.
We also didn't get any hint of them having kids in that final Batman Tom King story, did we? He just didn't mention it, but he also didn't say that it never happened.
But I mean, they could have been an oopsies.
I was going to say initially that Talia had it first, but she didn't, because if you count Earth 2, then I guess technically in a different world, Catwoman did. But it's going to be hard to top the love child that is Damian Wayne based on whatever ends up happening here.
Just because Damian is magnificent,
yes,
doesn't mean that his mom is.
No, but they make a great child. They make a great baby together, Talia and Bruce.
But wasn't Damian grown in like a test tube? Isn't he kind of really just a
in
clone?
The retcon? That in itself is a retcon too, because they wanted to make it so that Bruce was not date raped by a 16-year-old, so they changed it so that the DNA that she got from him is what made Damian. It's really bizarre, but their DNA still made an amazing baby.
Okay, well, just let him and Catwoman be happy. But also I need to contact Tom King and tell him that she would not be standing on a rooftop in spandex.
Do you want this to also be Helena Wayne, just to kind of bring her back into this continuity?
I definitely think it will be Helena Wayne, whether I want it to be or not. Like, if they make somebody else cool, but why not? You already have this character lined up. You have Huntress was in the movie, whether she was well-liked or not, leaves something to be said, but more eyes are on this character, right? So now you can say, oh, well, here's where she started, right? Here's Batman and Catwoman, who are so iconic. Watch their love story. This is who it turns into.
Right, or at least that version of Huntress. That's not the only baby in comics, though. This week, the latest Aquaman issue came out, and Arthur and Mara's baby came about, and they have a daughter, a little redhead daughter.
That baby would not be redhead. That's a recessive gene.
He's blonde, though.
Yeah. It would have been
really?
blonde, baby.
I didn't know that.
It usually skips a generation.
Gotcha.
So, that's why I'm the only redhead. Maybe Leo will have a redhead kid someday.
It's possible. Could happen. Next news story is, again, from DC Comics.
We're done talking about this? I could just keep on going. Batman and Catwoman.
They are launching the return of Batman, the animated series, with a new 6-issue miniseries called Batman, The Adventures Continue. Fucking Paul Dini. He was on Twitter teasing this shit. Not even teasing this shit. He just said, hey, Ty, we should work on something again together. He didn't even tag Ty Templeton. I had to go in there and tag Ty. Say, hey, please, Ty, I put the eye emojis. And then the next day they announced this. I'm like, fucking Paul Dini, you were fucking dicking around.
Burr, 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 burr. You talked so long before I could do that. I was just waiting for my theme song. This just shows that Paul doesn't understand Twitter, and because he should have done this months ago. Yes. He should have said that, and instead he's like, "Oh, it's the day before. I'll do this." Tee-hee. But obviously didn't tag him either, so he just doesn't understand.
Well, I know that neither of them knew that they were going to break it the next day, so I don't know if he was just in anticipation of when they were going to do that. This book, though, is going to be written by the show's producers Paul Dini and Alan Burnett, illustrated, of course, by the great Ty Templeton, who worked on the show's old tie-in comic series, Batman Adventures. We have 2 comic book covers custom made by him. We have the Batman versus Ra's al Ghul shirtless that we had him do several years back. And then about 2 years ago, we had him do actually it was last year, do Detective Comics 27 in Batman the Animated Series style, but instead of the Crook, they switched spots and it's Man-Bat with his, hanging on to Batman. And he did that one in full color and everything.
this comic is to you as the Bat-Cat baby is to me.
Yes, that's a fair analogy.
So exciting.
So I did get something this
week. So you
week.
did. Look at that. Now you can't be mad about the Bat-Cat baby.
Except you also enjoy this, so you're still overwinning.
As always, I'm the emperor. Life is a win.
Fair enough.
All the time. So the comic will feature Timverse debuts of character like Jason Todd, Deathstroke, and Azrael.
That's pretty huge.
That's awesome.
We have a quote here from Paul Dini, who told Entertainment Weekly, quote, "We've gone from Dick Grayson to Tim Drake, and we had left out Jason. What we're doing with this is looking at this as a chance to go back and actually acknowledge that was a part of the animated series Batman's history," end quote.
That I just don't feel like is even the truth. They're just like, you want to make this comic? And he's like, yes. Like, I'll do anything. Just anything.
That's a pretty interesting challenge, though, right? As a writer, to say, all right, how do we fit in Jason Todd? How do we fit in Deathstroke, Azrael? I think Jason Todd's going to be the toughest one because you hadn't really seen anything around or even hinted at, even in the Tim Drake Batman Beyond future.
But I don't think it's going to be difficult because this man has had 20 years to think up how all this fits in together. And you can't sit there and tell me that he wasn't continually working on this love child forever. Like, I feel like if you create something like that, something that massive, anytime that you speak to anybody that you worked on that with, it's conversations of what else could we have done? Like, what more could we do if given the chance again? So I think all of this was already written out in his head, like 100%. Do I think that it won't fit? No, I think that he's going to find a way to write it in there somehow, right? Like maybe something happens and the shame is so great for Batman that the Bat family just doesn't mention it, right? It was such a big loss for everybody. We just don't mention it and we move on. And there's plenty of villains that didn't show up in the show that they don't mention that I could feasibly believe were part of that universe, right? Mm-hmm. Just because they weren't in an episode. An episode is a day or two snippet in the life of, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's not so much more to that world, which obviously we know that there is.
That's very true. And Paul was clear in saying that this is nowhere near the timeline of Batman Beyond. So to anyone that thinks that this is going to that's going to bridge those two stories, it isn't at all.
He's pretty much saying, no, not Batman Beyond.
Yeah, this isn't going to be an old man Batman who's struggling or any of that.
We don't want that shit. It's going to be Batman the animated
Hell
series.
Yeah, we want Batman in his prime.
That's what Dini's saying.
It's
Catwoman wanted Batman in his prime too. Pachow!
Didn't get it in an animated series though. It was all Talia. In this
No.
iteration though of the animated series, I know it's just a mini series. I hope it ends up doing so well that we get more or a second volume of it. It'll depend on obviously the whole crew and how well it does. It is going to be digital first before it hits comic shops, but I think it's by a couple of weeks as the difference. And I'm going to get all the covers that I can, just like in Batman Adventures and TMNT when they did that crossover between those animated series, even the online retailer variants. I was like, fuck it. I need everything animated series. Like we all have our thing, and Batman the Animated Series is definitely my thing. And this is no exception. The first story will focus on the, I guess, mental struggle or the power struggle between Batman and Lex Luthor. So that'll be fascinating because we saw a little bit of that in Justice League. And I think those two characters, you can write a lot of stories. I know it's typically Superman and Lex, but that dynamic between these two who are, you know, definitely more in a more gray area in which they probably, I got to say that Lex probably likes Batman and he hates Superman, right? Or at least he doesn't hate Batman is what I would say. So I'm very interested to see how they interact.
I would definitely say that Lex Luthor agrees more with Batman's methods than he does with Superman's Boy Scout methods, and probably respects his intelligence, his intellect, and the things that he does. Yeah,
plus he's not an alien, right? Batman is a fellow man just like him, someone he can respect, and Superman's the first person that made him feel like lesser than he is. And that's all in Lex's head, of course, but that's how he harbors so much hate for Superman.
If you are excited for this book too, it is set to hit shops May 6, 2020.
It'll be in the next previews catalog, so make sure to keep a lookout on for that. But that is our final news story for this week. Let's head into our Patreon shoutouts.
These are shout-outs to everyone who makes the show possible. We have 7 shout-outs this week.
First one goes out to Joshua on Instagram, JDTOS.
Joshua shared the snaky casualty that made its way into his house. His indoor cats don't play.
Fucked that thing up.
Ew.
It was crazy. But I guess it's good. I don't know what kind of snake it was or anything, but it's kind of nice knowing that the cat, actually gave a shit.
Right.
Yeah. Whether or not it was playing with it. But I know some pets won't go after those things and will just stare at them. So that was kind of crazy. And again, cats will either fuck you up or they'll ignore you. And this one did not ignore this snake.
Next up, we have Nick F. You can find him at Jersey Whisperer and at Nick's Nerd News 1.
Nick met Clerks star Brian O'Halloran. I know he's a huge Kevin Smith fan, so that was a big day for Nick. He's having a good couple of months.
That's
Very
awesome.
good, Nick. Next shout out goes out to Julian W. on Twitter at Kage023 and at Lazy Gaming Guys.
He's been streaming Kingdom Hearts 3 and also retweeted the Kellogg's vs. Capcom fan art.
That got us debating a little bit.
It did. We did. We sat around and debate. You felt that Tony the Tiger would win, and I'm not in agreement.
I said he'd be overpowered.
I'm not in agreement. I don't.
Who's overpowered then in the Kellogg's universe?
Oh my God. They would pick somebody like the Lucky Charms leprechaun or something. He would turn into like one of those creepy ass leprechauns and just start eating people.
I know we were doing on their Discord for Lazy Gaming Guys what our team-ups would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one I settled on, and when you mentioned Count Chocula, I was like, oh, that's right, would be Dimitri, Morgan, and Count Chocula.
Just pick
all the vampires.
All the vampires. Oh my goodness.
Next shout out goes out to Christian on Instagram at Christian.ch131.
He visited and posted pictures of the Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge.
Beautiful shots, Christian. Make sure to follow his Instagram.
Next up is Renee, whose Twitter handle is at Yugi's Pokemon.
Make sure to check out his Twitter. I know he does put up some links when he goes live on Twitch. So if you follow him on there, you'll see when he does his streams.
Next up, we have Corey B., whose Twitter handle is at Comictropolis.
Corey bought and posted his Brokehead Core mug and pin pickups from our TeePublic store. He put it up on Vero. He put it on Twitter. And I know TeePublic does not tell. It doesn't give us the names of who bought these things. So we always say, like, if you bought something, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We wish we could thank you personally. And in this case, because he posted it, we can. And thank you so much, Corey. And enjoy the mug and the pin.
They were so cool. That was a beautiful mug. Why don't I have one of those mugs?
Looks like I'm buying a mug.
You got to. There's not enough room in the cabinet, but but we need one. And our final shout out goes out to Shane M., whose Twitter handle is at S_Miller_27.
He tweeted out, quote, 2 big pickups today, Uncanny X-Men 142 and 268. I'm such a sucker for the artwork on these Uncanny books. I absolutely love them all, end quote. These are, of course, the issues of Days of Future Past and a pretty infamous Jim Lee cover.
So thank you so much, Shane M., Corey B., Renee, Christian, Julian W., Nick F., and Joshua T. for your Patreon support.
If you too would like your shout out every single month, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. And for a minimum of $1 a month, which equals out to 25 cents an episode, you too can get your shout out and help Papa Kelly and I keep the podcast going.
But of course, the podcast is always free. Thank you guys so much for tuning in each and every week, for talking to us on Twitter, for following me on Twitter. I got a new follower or 2 this week, or 3. I don't know. I don't know how many I'm up to now, but I'm going to have to start tweeting more. I say that every week.
Let's head on over to our comic book highlight of the week.
This week, our highlight is Joker Killer Smile number 3 of 3.
This was voted on by the Brokehead Core. It is written by Jeff Lemire, art by Andrea Sorrentino, and colors by Jordi Belair.
So this is the conclusion of this tale of another psychiatrist trying to help Joker, falling into madness, doing things that he ordinarily wouldn't do, and of course, Batman stepping in to save the day.
I was talking to a subscriber earlier today, and we were talking about Killer Smile, And I was like, yet another psychiatrist that falls for the Joker in a terrible way. Someone who loses his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, there was Harley Quinn, this guy, and who else? And I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, I guess it's only been 2. But I thought this first issue mentioned that he had gone through several psychologists already. And I thought that even in Mad Love and in Harleen, they had mentioned that the Joker just fucks all these people up anyway.
Yeah, they do mention that they don't stay very long. In Harleen, they did mention that they don't try to get very deep or ask the right questions, is what that she was noticing, which is why she tried to, further ask these questions. But realistically, I think any psychologist, right, and especially when you're talking to somebody as fucked up as the Joker, you're going to get messed up because you're trying to get into their head and you're trying to understand them. And there has to be a certain level of empathy that you have to be a psychologist. So yeah, you're definitely going to pick up on those traits. I know that I could not talk to the Joker because I'd probably be crazy in like 5 seconds.
Yeah, this is the final issue of this DC Black Label miniseries, very appropriately a Black Label book. It's a disturbing title. It does get a little bit graphic, but I think this one was probably the one that gave me the most tension in reading it because you weren't sure how far this character that we had been following this whole time was going to go in his madness after the Joker had already manipulated him for, I think they had said months or years in issue number 2.
Yeah, it had been a very long time. I do feel like these didn't come out close enough together. Am I wrong in that? I felt like it's been a really long time since I read issue 2.
Yeah, the Black Label books come out every other month.
Okay, so I would like to go back and read it all together because I felt like by the end of it, I was still kind of confused of, well, how did he really mess this guy up? Obviously, talking to him made him insane eventually, but I don't know. I was still a little confused, but definitely on the edge of my seat with, the stuff with his family. What's he going to do to his family? Having a child myself, of course, I related to the woman of, okay, I got to get my kid out of here, but now Joker screwed with his head and this whole oh, she did that to you. You need to take it out on her essentially. And what's that going to do? There's a lot left up kind of in the air of, is this really what's happening or is it all in his head? Like when he turns and he sees his kid and he's got the Joker face paint on and he's like, just take me with you.
Yeah, that was heavy.
Yeah, it was difficult. And then they lighten it up a lot by having the kids book that you're reading through that very much reflect what's really going on, but make it a little bit lighter rather than just seeing all the blood and gore that's going on.
And I was surprised that this overall ended up being a happy ending for the whole thing in a way. Because I think as a reader, if they had made it so that this character instead murdered his family or whatever, I think we would have lost all of us. And then it's not necessarily because this terrible thing happened, but I think it's because we had connected to this character at the very beginning. And you get into his head and you sympathize with the fact that he is losing it and he's trying to maintain his life in all aspects and it's not happening. And instead it's like, holy shit, it's been months or years since I've been seeing the Joker. My wife and kid have been gone. I've been sitting here talking to myself for months. And it's like you're kind of lost along with him because you're reading the story. So I think it was kind of imperative for him to not have ever really harmed his family at the very end of it. And I'm glad that they instead give that message of he beat the Joker because he had hope in the end, right? And that's what, even though he ends up going away, probably for life, he's a damaged guy because of the Joker. At least he knows that there is hope with his family out there. And Batman was able to, as well, save him in the nick of time.
It'll be really interesting when we get the sequel, the follow-up to this, told from Batman's point of view. Hopefully, like I said, it's the same events that happened that we can see through his eyes, through a different set of eyes. And rather than be so much in the madness of what's really real, you'll get to see the flip side, right? Where maybe Batman's observing him sitting here talking to himself, and now we know what's really going on in the reality of the situation.
And I think this has so far been the most creatively different of the DC superhero Black Label books. So I wouldn't say that this is the strongest one either. And I think I'm not going to buy the trade paperback. I think I'm more willing to buy that for something like Harleen, which I think so far has been the best of the Black Label books, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, same.
And this one was good, and it's got me interested enough to get that one shot when that eventually does come out. And I did like what Jeff Lemire did here, since we don't often get a story from someone who works inside Arkham.
Thank you guys for your Brocat pick. Really great story, great wrap up. If you guys want to pick it up, go ahead. All 3 are out. And of course, like you said, the trade paperback will be coming out.
Usually they've been doing hardcovers as well for the Black Label books. They'll do them real fancy, and they'll have an acetate cover on them.
That's awesome.
And really make the presentation nice for these books. And I think that's what's helping move a lot of these titles, even in their floppy format. But if you two want to vote for what we review every single week, follow us on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke. And every Wednesday morning, I'll put up the poll at about 9:30, 9:45 Eastern time. And then from there you can vote. And then whichever ones they voted for the most is what we're going to review right here. Let's head into the final segment of the show. It is the Brocat Block.
The Brocat Block is what happened with Daniel and I this week, but we're going to start off with a listener question.
This one comes from our Patreon shout out earlier at S_Miller_27, who tweeted out, quote, "As a DC novice, other than Red Sun, what DC series would you suggest for me to start?" End quote. And he did later on specify something that's not current.
Ooh, that's tough. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Court of Owls.
Court of Owls is great.
You're going to say the run of Green Lantern.
Jeff Johns' Rebirth. Yeah, those are good ones. But he did have me set aside a trade paperback of what my pick was, and it is the Batman and Robin run from the New 52 by Peter J. Tomasi. No pressure, right? I was like, shit. But that one is like immediately where I went to. I know Court of Owls is amazing. Mm-hmm. Great story as well. But when I reflect back on the New 52, that relationship, and I don't know if it's because I'm a dad now, but that relationship between Batman and Damian, as they're growing up, as he's never done this father thing, and Damian's never had a dad, and he's never grown up as a good kid either, right? He's never been really a good person as far as how you interact in a regular society in not killing. And Batman's rules are, if you're going to be Robin, there's no killing. And Batman, in the meantime, is struggling with, how do I discipline this kid? And Alfred is kind of there guiding him along, right? Alfred is being an effective grandpa in a way to Damian Wayne. Even though Damian doesn't respect him, Damian knows that Alfred knows his stuff, and he knows that he should listen to his father. And it's great to see them throughout these arcs and these issues grow together as better people, as a better father and as a better son. And the artwork by Pat Gleason is fucking astounding. This is that arc that made me a Peter J. Tomasi fan for fucking life. Everything he went on to make after that. He did the Superman run in DC Rebirth, which was awesome. Pat Gleason, I believe, also went on with him in that. And now he's doing Detective Comics, although Pat Gleason has since moved on to an exclusive contract with Marvel, which is unfortunate, but they're both great. Whoever gets them, really benefits. And I really, really like the Batman and Robin run. But since he's about to read that, the Court of Owls is amazing. Volumes 1 and 2 is what it is for the trade paperback. And you had mentioned that Jeff Johns' Green Lantern Rebirth. That is a years and years of investment, right? Because his run went on for 9 years, and it is an amazing story that is really the story of Sinestro when you really think about it and how it was all capped off. He has the most growth throughout all of this. Changes the Green Lantern Corps in ways that makes it better in the end. And as a Sinestro fan, I became a huge Sinestro fan because of Jeff Johns' run on Green Lantern. And right now they're republishing those as omnibuses. They're up to volume 3 as of, I believe, next week. So that'll catch you up to, I think, the Sinestro Corps War. But it's a great way to recollect all of these issues. That's how I'm getting his full run of these. And that's what I'm going to go with at the moment.
An honorable mention for me, I will say Gotham City Sirens, and it's been a long time since I read these, but just a lot of fun to see Harley and Poison Ivy and Catwoman all working together and doing these different things and just being awesome, right? That's kind of where I started my comic journey, was during Gotham City Sirens, during Streets of Gotham, and really kind of the taking off point for me, which I was reading everything, that we picked up for years and years, and unfortunately I've had to dial back just with life. But those are definitely two that stick out in my mind. All the ones that you mentioned, we mentioned Hush a lot. Hush is a great story as well. Some Batman Catwoman love in there. Yeah, real good. Little Gotham by Dustin Nguyen is also a favorite. Much lighter stories, right? If you're really looking for the meat and bones of DC, I'm not going to say that this is it. But, if you're a Batman fan, really great to read as well.
Especially if you're a Batman the Animated Series fan, because there's a lot of that in Batman Low Gotham. And yeah, as you said, Gotham City Sirens, I think the first arc or two were written by Paul Dini, who worked on the animated series,
right,
and who is now doing that Batman Adventures Continues miniseries, which is awesome. I don't think they've collected the Paul Dini Detective Comics works yet.
Those were great too, though.
Those are awesome. Anything by Paul Dini, if you can find it, is gold. Always buy that stuff. And those are amazing stories. So hopefully we gave you plenty to research or kind of pick from. And really whatever you go on, in my opinion, I think won't be a bad choice at all. I think they're all very solid stories and stuff that I look back on and remember. And he already eliminated Superman Red Son. But if anyone else out there has not read Superman Red Son, read that before you watch the animated movie, because who knows how that's going to turn out.
So thank you so much for submitting that question. If you too have a question, want it heard here on the podcast, or just want to leave us a comment for anything, of course, at Reasons I'm Broke, at Palpa Kelli, Kelly spelled with an I.
Let's go ahead and finish off the show. Where have you been this week?
Oof, what happened this week? Due to some childcare, I got to take 5 days off to be with Leo. So I had 5 days with Leo. It was a lot. He's a very busy little boy. You have to be on your toes all the time, and then he takes a nap, and your choices are, do I nap too because I'm exhausted, or do I have a few minutes to myself, right? And so it was great spending that time with him, but by the end of day 5, I was ready to go back to work and dive back into it and do what I love and get real coffee. So that was mostly my week of spending time with him, working on Cricut projects. I've just been kind of doing some research on different things that I want to do and can do, and just stole my mom's Cricut. It's mine now. Making all these vinyl cutouts. That was pretty much I'm just like a mom, living my mom life, doing my mom stuff. Leo got a haircut this week.
Yeah, his haircuts always look funny to me because his head's so big.
Right.
So he just looks even bigger.
But the thing is, his bangs, the front of his hair gets cut straight across, right? Which if we comb it to the side, it looks so cute and it's so perfect, but we have to keep up with that. We don't. We just let it do whatever it wants. But he got to the point where it was so long, and it's about every 3 weeks that we have to get his hair cut. But it got so long that when he takes a bath, it just drips into his eyes the whole time. And then he gets so angry because he just has water. And I'm like, okay, we'll just got to get it cut. But we get charged for adult haircuts now because his hair is adult hair, essentially.
Yeah, he's growing incredibly quickly. And I noticed that even more after his haircut, because it's he looks even more like a little boy, a little kid, not a baby anymore. And it's pretty insane how quickly, I know they say that, right? It goes by quick, and it's when you're going through it, that's when you really see it, right? That's when you really believe it or experience it. I didn't have a ton happen in my week. Allergies are back with a vengeance this time. And I know last spring, I kind of got away with it a little bit where I didn't have to take a ton of Claritin D. But this time, there was the other night where it was hitting me as I was trying to sleep. So I got very little sleep that night. And then the next day, I'm like, all right, Claritin D time, expensive ass fucking Claritin D. And it's unfortunate, but it's I don't know how last year was kind of a skip year and I got lucky, but I'll just be grateful for that year and just assume that this is going to be another one like 2018 was, right? Where I had to take a Claritin D almost every day in the spring, and even worse when I'm outside doing the lawn and all that.
You need to go to an allergist.
I don't know if that would work. I don't know.
Okay,
Claritin D does it, but
I get that, but you don't know if it's going to work until you go. We have insurance. What am I paying insurance for?
Well, they say that a lot, but then when people go to the hospital and they have to pay like $3,000, then they also say, "What am I paying insurance for?"
I mean, that's true, but it's practically free. Just go.
I also recorded another Batman the Animated Series commentary episode. This one was for the No Reason to Fear, I think it was called, or the first Scarecrow episode. And do you have any memories of that? That's when he was in that balloon head version of the Scarecrow.
I love Balloon Head Scarecrow. Is that the one where he sees his dad? Like he's hanging from the blimp, and yeah, that was a great episode. Yeah, really awesome.
I had pointed out in that, and I don't know if you remember, but you know that Dr. Long, I think was his name, that tells him your dad would be ashamed of who you are. And I thought, I'm like, at the end, they should have had like some kind of resolution between him and Bruce, because he's just like, no, that guy's a dick. Your father would be ashamed. And that's like the last interaction they had, aside from him as Batman saving him in the, from the blimp at the very end as it wrecks fucking Gotham City and crashes into buildings. So it's a great one though, because he overcomes that fear or that insecurity that he had of, is me acting like Bruce Wayne reflecting terribly on the lives of my parents? But that's when he confronts that fear, and it manifests in his dad of, I'm not a failure, I'm Batman. That's who I am. I'm not Bruce Wayne. I'm not that guy that's out there that he sees.
Right.
I know who I am. And Alfred has that amazing moment in the Batcave where he tells him, I know your father would be proud of you because I'm proud of you. And it's like, shit, man. Like, there's so much good shit in these early episodes too. And every one of these. So that's what I had going on, and that'll release in about a week or two. So that'll be out first on Patreon, and then 4 weeks later out publicly to everyone else. But that's all I had. That's all I had this week.
I mean, you spent time with me. You got to look at your beautiful wife.
I did, every single day.
Thank you. It's a proper answer.
But thank you all so much for joining us on today's episode. Where can they find you, Papa Kelly?
At Papa Kelly.
On Twitter.
On Twitter. Kelly spelled with an I.
And I'm on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke. But for a link of everywhere you can find us, head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com. Thank you again for tuning in this and every week. I've been Aqua Leader Daniel.
And I'm Emperor Papa Kelly.
And Brokehead Core. All will be well.
I'm ready to hear more about how beautiful I am.
You are you are as beautiful as Bruce sees Talia.
What? No, why would you say that to me? Why would you say that to me?
I'm speaking from the
heart. That's
heart.
like the worst thing. You might as well just say I look like trash.
That's not true.
You might as well just say
okay, I'll lie
trash.
to you. I see you how Batman views Catwoman.
That
not as strongly as he views Talia. So see? This is why I went with the other one. I followed my heart. And Bruce's heart.
Why are you pointing to your stomach when you said you followed your heart? I don't agree with this. I don't like this anymore. Those were not proper husband responses.